And good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to another edition of ACHA tonight as we break down Day 8 of the 2019 ACHA National Championship Tournament here from Frisco, Texas. I am Matt Coma. That's Quinn Kuski, as he was here for the 4 games of the Women's Division I bracket, as we saw 3 teams punch their way into the semifinals. One series ends up going to the best of 3. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, Quinn, your thoughts on Day 2 of the Women's D1 tournament.
Day 2 was a great day of hockey. We had a couple of close games and a couple of not so close games, but all in all, pretty fun day of hockey, good games to watch.
All right, well, let's kick it off with the first game we saw. Miami of Ohio taking on Michigan State. The 4-5 matchup, we saw a hotly contested game between those two teams in a 1-0 game yesterday. And that's exactly what we got today as well. Yeah,
if you were tuned in, you might have thought you clicked on the wrong game. It felt kind of like deja vu, 1-0 in favor of Miami, Ohio, and back-to-back shutouts for the netminder in that one.
Yeah.
Very, very well played.
Let's say we're going to have Ripley Cosley on the show here in just a little bit, and she has back-to-back shutouts. That's going to be pretty good for a team's momentum when you have a goaltender that hasn't given up a goal yet in the tournament.
Yeah, we saw it in the men's D1 tournament with Bykowski on Minot State. He was a hot goalie through the whole tournament, was the backstop for that team, and we might have another case here with Cosley. 52 shots faced, 52 stops.
Yeah, she's been absolutely fantastic in between the pipes for the Redhawks, as Miami has punched their ticket to the semifinals. They await the Liberty Flames, who took on the Midland Warriors in a nightcap here in Liberty. It was closer than the score was pretty close, but the stat sheet kind of was a little bit closer than it actually was.
Yeah, Liberty and Midland, the final score in that one was 6-2. Liberty outshot Midland 48-18 in that game. It was Liberty domination, 5-0 going into the third period, and Liberty started running those back lines a bit more. They pulled out Rapoli and put in Swoop, played the back end players, so they wouldn't have their players tired out, knowing that they're going to have more games to play in this tournament. And Ulshamel wound up getting a couple from Midland, but it was too little too late, and Liberty cruised to a 6-2 victory.
All right, speaking of the Liberty Flames, the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the Adrian Bulldogs, they took care of business today, taking out McKendree in a 2-game sweep. What did you see from that game?
Adrian, they just outplayed McKendree just about at every facet of the game. McKendree held on for as long as they could. It was 2-0. McKendree brought it back to 2-1, and then Adrian finished them off late in a 3-1 victory for the Bulldogs.
All right, so we know Liberty's through, we know Adrian's through, we know Miami is through. There's one game we're going to have to play tomorrow. It's the first time in at least over 2 years we didn't have any games go to a best-of-3 in Columbus a season ago. We're going to get one tomorrow between Lindenwood Belleville and the Grand Valley State Lakers, as the Lynx, they showed up to play today.
Oh, the Lynx showed up to play today. I don't think they were very happy about losing Game 1. They almost came back in Game 1. They had that penalty shot with under 2 seconds to go. Couldn't quite make that one happen. Today, they came out and just outplayed Grand Valley the entire time. 10-2 final score, and Grand Valley got that second one way late in the third period after Lindenwood just stopped trying. And if they can, now the question becomes for Game 3, which Lindenwood team are you going to get? Which Grand Valley team are you going to get? Grand Valley had opportunities in this game, but they weren't capitalizing. Game 1, they capitalized on every opportunity they got. This one, they had probably 3 or 4 goals get away from them that they could have had, and then in desperation at the end, and they just wound up giving up way more goals. They were in the game, and after the game was long over, it got really ugly.
So Lindenwood Belleville forces Game 3 tomorrow. That game's going to be at 1 o'clock right here at the Comerica Center, Central Standard Time, as we're going to see that Game 3. Who has the edge in this thing? Because Grand Valley kind of shocked everybody with that Day 1 win, but Lindenwood showed up to play in Day 2. Which teams do we see here for Game 3 tomorrow?
Well, even if you look, Grand Valley winning the first game, they were thoroughly outplayed by Lindenwood Belleville, but they were just capitalizing on more opportunities than Belleville. They had the hot netminder, but if you're Lindenwood right now, you have all the momentum in this series. You played the better third period in the first game by far. You played a better full 3 periods in this one. And I expect them to cruise on, and they'll move on to play Adrian.
All right, so we have one more spot to decide tomorrow in the semifinals. We know 3 of the 4. We'll find out the 4th one as Grand Valley State takes on Lindenwood Belleville at 1 o'clock right here at the Comerica Center tomorrow. That'll wrap up the preliminary rounds of the Women's Division I. We'll have the semifinals on Saturday, and then, of course, the championship Saturday afternoon. Quinn, thanks for stopping by. Always appreciate your insight.
Always fun.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we do have Ripley Cosley on set with us tonight. Had both of those shutouts for Miami today. We'll talk to her next right here on ACHA Tonight.
Dallas, Texas, in a stadium that has been sold out for months, the Cotton Bowl.
Notre Dame leading 17-14. 1:10 remaining in the game, and Texas with Street at quarterback. Street gives to the second man for a touchdown for Texas.
The 2020 Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic, an annual celebration of hockey's heritage. Tickets on sale April 23rd. The Cotton Bowl, New Year's Day. It's gonna be a classic.
And welcome to ACHA tonight, recapping day 8 of the 2019 ACHA National Championship Tournament. I'm now joined by Ripley Cosley. She's the goaltender for the Miami of Ohio squad that just punched their ticket to the semifinals today. Back-to-back shoutouts for you, Ripley. Just first off, how's it been over the last 2 days?
It's been really intense. We've been going and going and going, but it's been super awesome. It's great to be here. Like, I've never been to Texas, so very fun.
Now I just talked to you off camera about it. That's back-to-back shutouts. That's not easy to do, and not alone in just 2 back-to-back games, but you do it in a national championship tournament. It's going to feel pretty good knowing that you haven't let a puck in the back of the net.
Yeah, it does. It feels good, and I know like my team trusts me, so it just helps them play better as well. So.
What have your teammates told you in the locker room after the last 2 days?
They've just been super excited for me and super happy, and just keep pushing me to do better and better.
All right, so now you guys move forward now. You guys are in the Final Four. You guys get to play on Saturday and potentially play for a national championship on Sunday. What's the vibe in the locker room with the girls right now?
We've been super excited. It's all about friendship, and we love each other so much, and we're just super excited to continue this and keep going for our seniors and our upperclassmen to win this national championship, hopefully. So, going for it.
Now, you guys are in the Final Four, but just take us through, what's the season been like for you guys?
The season's been pretty good, I think. We've been doing all right, back and forth here and there, but we've been battling it and stuff, so it's been good.
Is there a certain team that you want to see in that semifinal?
I think I want to see Liberty.
Okay.
I'm looking at Liberty. When I played Liberty, we tied them. So.
Oh, well, even better. It must feel better knocking off the top team in the league as well, right?
Yeah, it does feel good.
All right. Favorite thing that you've had over here since you've been here in Frisco? What's your most favorite thing that you've done so far?
I really like ice cream, and I had a gelato place in the mall that was super great. And we've all just been hanging out as a team and just bonding a lot, so that's been super fun.
All right, well, Ripley, congratulations on all the success and best of luck on Saturday. I know you guys get the day off to rest tomorrow. That's got to be pretty nice to be able to rest while some of these teams are still playing tomorrow.
Yes, it is. We needed the break.
Yeah. All right, well, best of luck on Saturday, and thanks for joining us on ACHA tonight.
Thank you.
All right, it's Ripley Cosley, back-to-back shutouts for the Miami of Ohio Redbirds. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll break down Division II of the women's side over at McKinney. We'll talk about that next right here on ACHA Tonight.
You ready? This guy's not ready. You're not ready. Let's go!
Hockey heads are special, which is why we protect them with a helmet designed, built, and tested to endure real-world hockey impacts.
And welcome back to ACHA tonight as we continue to break down day 8 of the 2019 ACHA National Championship Tournament. I'm Matt Como. That's Thomas Biondo. You may recognize our voices from the McKinney rink as we've been there all day today covering the Women's Division II National Championship Tournament. Day 2 of pool play. We crowned 1 semi-finalist already today. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but let's kick things off on the first game on your side of the rink. We saw Minot State, the national finalist a season ago, taking out Mercyhurst in the opening game.
And I saw nothing in that game that doesn't tell me Minot State's not going right back there. They looked fantastic. They looked fantastic in their first game as they really took control early against Rowan and just never let go. That was the day before Mercyhurst. It was the same kind of thing. They just pressured. I believe at one point, before the game was even over, I had said that they had over 150 shots in the 2 games combined. They are rolling. Can't see them stumbling, although it is possible that they could because their game tomorrow against Boston College. Boston College has an overtime loss, so they have 1 extra point, meaning if Boston College can beat them, they're going home. I just have seen nothing that says Minot State's on their way home.
Yeah, speaking of Boston College, they got another win today, or they got their first win of the tournament after that overtime loss yesterday. beating up on Rowan 4-0 in that one. But it was a close game going into the third period, but that's when the Eagles kind of just turned it on there.
The Rowan netminder, it's going to sound weird to say that somebody who's given up 20 goals in 2 games has been fantastic. I tell you, if I was in there, it would have been 30. She has been great. What else can you say? I mean, it's tough. They're kind of just a 2-line team. I think it's 11 total skaters plus her. And she was fantastic all throughout the 2 games, and they get one more chance tomorrow to try to get a victory. It won't be easy against Assiniboine anyway, but again, a lot of credit to the fight that the Rowan squad has had.
Yeah, speaking of that Assiniboine game, that'll be the cross-pool matchup in pools A and B. Assiniboine clinching Pool B today thanks to their win over Northeastern. Northeastern feeling on a high after that overtime win against Boston College yesterday, but ran to the buzzsaw that is Assiniboine. The Cougars look like a very dominant team in this tournament. 6-1 the final in this one as they put up over 50 shots in that contest. Northeastern tried to hang around as much as they could. They get the first goal on Assiniboine in this tournament. They had the shutout yesterday. But Assiniboine, they beat Northeastern after beating their team yesterday to clinch the pool. So Assiniboine punches their ticket to the semifinal. They win Pool B. They'll take on the winner of Pool D, which is going to have a great finish to it as well. As we take a look at the rest of the games here, the next game I had was Bishops and Iowa State, and it's been a rough one for the Cyclones, to say the least. They're the only team that has yet to score in the Division II tournament. Get a shout out to Bishops, who is, again, looks like a very solid team, as the Canadian teams have really done well. Bishops, Assiniboine, and Lakehead, as the 3 Canadian teams have really imposed their will here in this tournament.
I mean, I'd say, are we surprised? But I don't think who's shocked about that. I mean, honestly, it's they have been good, but they've been good for a while. I mean, like you said, the defending national championships there. It looks like the 3 of them, and might not maybe on a crash course, but again, it's still one more day to decide it, and there's some things left up to be decided still.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a minute. Going through the rest of the games, your final day over on your rink, Lakehead and Buffalo, one of those Canadian teams. Yep. Buffalo's tender looked really good in this contest, keeping it in a close game as Lakehead really threw everything at them, just like Minot State did.
Yeah, that game, I believe, was, if I remember correctly, was 1-0 after 2. It was still a very close game before Lakehead was able to kind of get a little separation, but it was, again, a really good game. Buffalo, as you said, not mind a really good day. Again, they have a scorer named Norton. She scored over 40 in under 20 regular season games, looked frustrated, was stymied heavily by the Lakehead University defense. They just pretty much owned the puck the majority of the game today.
All right, and the final game on my side of the rink, Adrian College against North Dakota State. And what can you say that it hasn't been already said about Adrian College? They took Bishops to 2-1 in day 1 yesterday, a very hotly contested game. They led this game against North Dakota State today, 1-0 early in the third period, a power play goal for the Bulldogs. But North Dakota State with 2 goals from Mary Presquez. You remember her from a year ago.
I do. That name definitely rings a bell.
Yeah, she's back again, gets both the goals for North Dakota State as they win 2-1 in a hotly contested battle. So we do have a couple of matchups to watch for tomorrow. We mentioned Assiniboine has already clinched Pool B. Minot State, as long as they handle their business tomorrow, will win Pool A. Pool C is going to come down to a winner-take-all battle between Bishops and North Dakota State. And then Lakehead, if they can take care of business tomorrow, they'll win Pool D.
So you have a busy day of championship play, it looks like, because you have those last 2 games, and I got the first one, so we'll each get some important calls. Again, I mentioned it earlier, I can't see Minot State losing. Boston College just played 2 good games, but, again, it's kind of separate teams playing against separate things, kind of using the transitive property to see how they're going to play against each other. I got to think that Minot's probably got the inside track on that one.
Yeah, that's a winner-take-all game as well. Boston College and Minot State, the winner of that game will win Pool A. Assiniboine takes on Rowan. That's a cross-pool game. That'll be the 10:30 matchup. Mercyhurst against Northeastern. Both teams have been eliminated from postseason contention.
Still expect it to be a pretty good game, though. From what I've seen from those teams, I would expect it to be a pretty good tilt.
All right, that game will be at 1, and then North Dakota State Bishops University, the winner of that moves on to the semifinals of that one. Adrian College and Buffalo both eliminated. That'll be an interesting game. I'm curious to see how Buffalo does, because Adrian has done enough to win hockey games in both days against 2 pretty strong teams, but just have come on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and there's still something to play for. You know it's your last game of the season. You know that there's no tomorrow, literally, so you're going to give it your all. So even the 2 games that I have, the 1 game that you have, that kind of don't have any effect on the national finals there, still going to be really good hockey games to watch.
Yep, and then the nightcap, the Iowa State Cyclones taking on Lakehead. The defending national champions need a win in order to win that pool and try to defend their title for a third straight time. Thomas and I will be there for the call on all 6 games over at McKinney as we wrap up pool play from the Women's Division II National Championship Tournament. We'll take one more break. When we come back, Lou Gamlin joins us to break down the final day of D3 Men's Tournament, as we now know the Final Four for the Men's Tournament as they'll get ready to play here at Comerica Center tomorrow. We'll talk about that coming up next right here on ACHA Tonight. And welcome back to ACHA Tonight as we wrap things up on day 8 of the 2019 ACHA National Championship Tournament. I'm joined now by Lou Gamlin. He and the crew have been over at Plano covering the Men's Division III tournament. As we wrapped up pool play today, the semifinals are set. The Final Four are in place. Before we talk about that, just pool play in general, how was it over the last 3 days in Division III?
Boy, I'll tell you what, without sounding too biased, I think it was the most exciting of the 2 pool play sets, or maybe even the other women's ones. I haven't seen any of those. But going into today, the 6 of the 8 games, well, actually turned out to be 5, but going into today, we thought we'd have 6 of the 8 games that had some meaning on the Final Four. And so it made for some great drama, and we didn't know going in who was going to be. We had the favorites, but as it turns out, we had a little bit of a surprise towards the end. All
right, well, let's take a look at what happened, and we'll start in Pool A. The big game of the day was Grand Valley State. Could they win and punch their ticket as the 3 seed out of Pool A into the semifinals? They had to beat Central Florida and make it happen, and they ended up making that happen.
They certainly did, but they got behind again, just like they did against Air Force. Took a couple of bad penalties in the early going, gave up a power play goal, but the turning point was Alex Siraki getting a shorthanded goal on one of the power plays with a minute, or under a minute to go in the opening period. That made it 2-2. Then they scored 3 more goals in the third period to make it 5-2, and they skated on to a victory. They looked very impressive. I love their team speed. You know, after the first period, I had a chance to talk with their head coach, Charlie Link, after the game, and he said, you know, it wasn't our best effort, but we both agreed that how could you have a great effort after that game they had against Farmingdale? You were due to have a letdown, so they advanced.
All right, so Grand Valley State beat Central Florida in that contest to punch their ticket in the semifinals. They win Pool A, kind of deflated the Farmingdale State game at the end of the day, taking on Air Force, a hotly contested battle there, but the Rams ended up getting the job done.
It really was, and I give credit to Joe Mazey's team at Farmingdale. They came out with a purpose. That was a team that was very senior-laden. They've been there 4 straight years as the #1 seed out of the Atlantic region. And Matt O'Shaughnessy, who I'll tell you what, he is one heck of a player. He had 2 goals to lead Farmingdale in that win today. So they finished with, you know, on a positive note, if you will, and getting over the sting of that game last night. So, you know, congratulations to them. No shame in finishing 2-1.
All right, so let's move on to Pool B. We know Grand Valley State's in the Final Four. We had a winner-take-all game between Fairfield and Kansas. We'll talk about that in a minute, but first let's talk about the other game. So we saw Oakland and Tampa, the Golden Grizzlies, getting it done 7-4. They end on a high note, but this was a pretty entertaining contest all the way through.
Boy, from what I heard it was, I just caught the highlights of it because I was in the other rink for the first game. And Oakland and Tampa, I knew it was going to be a very emotionally filled game. This Oakland team has been to the Nationals 4 or 5 straight years. I saw a couple of the parents before the game. They were in tears before the game started. They didn't want this to end. So, you know, the emotions were running high in this one, and indeed they were. Steve Laurel, Kuntz, and Graham each with 2 goals, but Steve Laurel gets the MVP of that game for me because he had a goal, an assist, and a fight. The Gordie Howe hat trick. How could you go wrong with that? Ending his career that way. 7-4 win for Oakland. So they finished strong, getting their only win of the conference, of the pool play.
All right, so that was the game, the consolation game in
Yes.
Pool B, the big game, the championship game of Pool B. Winner take all, Fairfield University, Kansas, the 1 and 2 seeds, and we were treated to the game of the day in this
without
nightcap.
a doubt, without a doubt. Kansas came in, the scoring machine that they've been all tournament. Dane Johnson, as we mentioned last night, 7 goals in the first 2 games, taking on a Fairfield team that had great goaltending. They stressed defense more than pretty much any of the teams, and they were down 2-0 late in the third period. They got a goal, then they pulled the goalie, they got the tying goal, and then on a turnover, Stanton scored the goal with 44 seconds left in regulation. Heartbreaker if you're Kansas, but if you're Michael Silva, I can't wait to talk to him. He was already long gone. I saw one of his assistants, and he said, "Lou, give me a hug." So they won 3-2, and they're moving on. I believe this is their first trip to the Final Four. So congratulations to Fairfield. Another team out of the Atlantic, by the way, 4 straight years as an automatic bid recipient. They got the 2 seed every year, so they're going.
Well, it seems like Fairfield, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but they've been to this kind of point, just haven't really cracked the semifinal 4, correct?
That's correct. They've been in the deciding game. 3 years ago, they were against Aquinas. Aquinas beat them on their way to a runner-up finish. They've been close, very close, but it's one of those things where they've 2 years ago, I think they had one bad period that cost them. I think they might have been 2-1 again, but this year they didn't slip up. They made it through. What an exciting game. And I got to give Todd credit, who was on the call of that one. What a fantastic finish for him, and obviously for Fairfield.
Yeah, so Fairfield wins Pool B. They move on to the semifinals. 2 more tickets to punch. Let's talk about Group C. First with the first game, Fordham taking on Nebraska. The Rams, thanks to that win over Florida Gulf Coast, kept their semifinal hopes alive with a win over Nebraska 8-4, and the Rams looked pretty good in this one.
Boy, they sure did. They came out, obviously the most goals that they've scored in the tournament in one game. They got 8 goals in this one, so they won 8-4 over Nebraska. So they had an outside shot waiting for that Michigan game as they, against Florida Gulf Coast, set up for a real crazy scenario in that Michigan game. We'll talk about it in a second. But give kudos to Fordham. Their opening year being in the national tournament, and they obviously made a great showing going 2-1.
Yeah.
Very, very, very proud of Rich Gilberti and his squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Fordham doing service for the 4 seeds, 2-1, finishing. Yes. Had a shot at the national championship there. They needed the game to go their way in the nightcap. Michigan is against Florida Gulf Coast. The Wolverines win, they're in. If the Gulf Coast gets it done, then we would have the tie-break scenario. But this ended up being not much of a contest. The Florida Gulf Coast Eagles, and I asked you off camera about this, this is kind of shocking. 2 losses in the tournament, and they get shut out on the final day.
Boy, I know it. They've got a high-powered offense, but they've run into a buzzsaw in Michigan. Michigan really came to play in this tournament. They had some doubters, but they came in. Their team speed yesterday with that 65-shot barrage they had, in that game against Fordham, and then today they came right out, picked up where they left off. Aaron Moss, who's one of the top players in the country, got the opening goal on the power play, and it was all lights out. It was a crazy scenario because Michigan was in with a win or a tie, but if they lost, they were still in as long as Florida Gulf Coast didn't beat them by 3 goals. But then if Florida Gulf Coast won by 3 goals, they couldn't give up more than 4 because then Fordham would have snuck in and won on the tiebreaker. It was crazy, but it was all left. There was no doubt after about a period and a half. Michigan cruised to a 6-0 win. Very impressive in the pool play. Really looking forward to that game that they have coming up tomorrow.
All right, so Michigan claims the 3rd spot. They win Pool C thanks to their win over the Eagles from Florida Gulf Coast. One more ticket to punch, Pool D. Let's talk about the consolation game. Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and Ramapo. Both teams looking for their first win of the tournament, and it's the Panthers that got it done on the last day of pool play.
Oh, it's an exciting game there, too. It's one of those games where they're playing for pride, but both teams have never been to the national tournament, rather. And so it was back and forth, and it looked like it was going to overtime. It really did. It was 3-3 with under a minute to go, and they were just skating it up and down, and all of a sudden Riley Keys got the game winner. 16.9 seconds left to go ahead 4-3. Then they got an empty net goal right off the face-off because Ramapo pulled their goalie, threw it in the net right away, I think within 5 seconds, a slapper right in the center of the net. So 5-3. Congratulations to UW Milwaukee. I know they were thrilled to make the tournament. And now they got a win to end it, and it's a builder for a young team for next year.
Well, I was going to ask you there, is like, yes, they were eliminated from contention, but a win on the last day of nationals, just getting that momentum for the season, that can fuel a team for a couple of years down the road.
Oh, it sure can, and believe it or not, it helps with recruiting. I've talked to coaches, from the schools in the South that if they can get a good showing, get a win, be competitive. And then they can say you get a win in the atmosphere of the tournament. We got there. You get to go there for 4 to 6 days or whatever it is. It really helps. And that's a big win for Milwaukee because they can build on it. Teams like Nebraska that have built on it and made return trips to the Nationals. It's definitely worth it getting that win.
All right, so moving on to the nightcap, it was another winner-take-all matchup. South Florida against Sioux. Sioux looked absolutely dominant the entire tournament. We said it was a winner-take-all, but it was really Sioux's game to lose, and they made sure they didn't lose this game as they got a 6-1 victory.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the scenarios that I forgot to mention last night in this game, coming into this game, was Sioux College scored 21 goals in 2 games. And believe it or not, if they would have tied tonight, they would have lost the tiebreaker to South Florida because they gave up 4 late goals in their game yesterday. And so I think it was 5-6 in the goals against side. But again, it didn't matter. Ryan Vandermeer led the way with 2 goals. I think they had 3 power play goals. They had a shorty. This Sioux College team is for real. They're strong, 3-4 lines. They're quick. Oh my goodness, they put on a show. And if it's going to set up for just a fantastic Final Four in Division III starting tomorrow. Right. I can't wait.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. We have our semifinals set. So the pool winners, Fairfield, Sioux, Michigan, and Grand Valley State. The Final Four is set. The Kings will kick off at 4 o'clock tomorrow with Michigan against Grand Valley State, a battle over the state of Michigan. It's going to be a fun one between these 2 teams that actually played each other in the regular season.
Yes, they have. They split the regular season. They know each other real well. They play together in the Michigan Collegiate Hockey Conference. So sometimes they get, honestly, I can't remember if they played in their conference tournament. They play for a trophy called the Vezina Cup. Michigan rather, finished runner-up in that cup. But it's going to come down to the battle of the goaltenders. I really believe that Michigan in this tournament has the edge, obviously. Flanagan's got 2 shutouts, and Evan Chang, who was their starting goalie, who was injured, played in the middle game, and he's sloughed off and gave up a goal. So it's going to come down to goaltending. Rosenbaum's great in goal for Grand Valley. They both can put the puck in the net. As cliche-ish as it sounds, it's going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes and who can take advantage of those.
All right, so that'll be the first semifinal right behind us here at the Comerica Center. The tournament shifts over to here. We get the big facility right behind us. It's empty now. It'll be full tomorrow for the D3 semifinal starting at 4 o'clock. At 7:30, it's the other semifinal as the Fairfield Stags take on Sioux College. And this one should be interesting, too. Fairfield finally getting out of pool play to make it the semis, but they run into Sioux. It's been looking pretty solid.
Well, I'll tell you, to me, it's going to be 2 contrasting styles again, but Fairfield's used to that. They're kind of the Davy versus Goliath. I don't think a lot of people gave them a chance in the game today running into this buzzsaw that Kansas supposedly brought to them. My key to this game, if you're Fairfield, is the Sioux brings kind of a physical style of play with that high-scoring offense. And, don't take any retaliatory penalties or anything like that. And with Lonnie in net for Fairfield, he's been a stud, too. I think his save percentage is like .950. It's ridiculous. And, if they can play their own game and play that defensive style, and, the Sioux, obviously they're a scoring machine. Their goaltending was solid tonight, but in the first couple of games, they let in a few goals that they probably shouldn't have. So if Fairfield can play their A game and stay penalty-free and get solid goaltending and, take advantage of a turnover here and there, who knows? It's going to make for a great semifinal there, too.
All right, so it's going to be a 1 seed, a pair of 2 seeds, and a 3 seed in our semifinal 4. None of these teams have ever won a D3 national championship, correct?
No, they haven't. And I believe that I know Grand Valley's been to the Final Four a couple of times. I think they may have been in the championship game. I know Michigan hasn't. So we're going to have a new face in the championship game, I believe. And again, it's a North region dominated Final Four, and a Pacific region gets the other one, that being, of course, Atlantic region with Fairfield. So a new participant, the Atlantic region. It's been a while since they've had somebody that's really made some noise. So who knows? Maybe they can make a dent in that North region dominance.
All right, so one final question before I let you go. We're down to the Final Four. Who is going to take home that trophy on Saturday?
On Saturday. Well, originally, before the tournament started, I picked Farmingdale. And, of course, they didn't make it. If I've got to go out on a limb and make a prediction, I'm going to go with Michigan against the Sioux in the final game. And, again, their goaltending is phenomenal. Sioux College, they've got the offense, but so does Michigan. I'm going with Michigan to keep it in the state of Michigan. Until somebody beats the North region, it's going to be an all-North matchup. I do believe that for the championship. But until somebody beats the state of Michigan and grabs that trophy out of the state of Michigan, I'm going with Michigan.
All right, it's going to be a fun day here tomorrow at Comerica Center. Games, again, 4 o'clock and 7:30. The D3 semifinals will be behind us right here at the Comerica Center. That's going to do it for us on day 8 of ACHA tonight. I'd like to thank Lou Ganlon for joining us to break down Division 3. I'd like to thank Quinn Kuski and Thomas Biondo for helping us to break down the other divisions. I'd like to thank Ripley Cosley for joining us as well, our special guest here on ACHA tonight. I want to thank the entire broadcast crew for helping us out, the staff here at the Comerica Center up in McKinney and also at Plano for everything that they've been doing over the course of this tournament. And it's going to be a fun finish to the end of this tournament. We got 3 days left. We still have 3 champions to crown, and we'll talk about them as we move forward to day 9 tomorrow, semifinals for the Division 3 folks tomorrow. We'll crown Division 1 and 2 women's champions on Sunday. Should be a great time here from Frisco, Texas. That's going to do it for us here on ACHA tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow to break down day 9. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 9 here from Frisco.